All right, we are live. This is the Barely Protestant YouTube channel, and I am with my friend Evan Minton from Cerebral Faith. If you listened way back in the day when I had the podcast, he was, I think, the first person I ever interviewed on that channel, on that podcast. We talked about his apologetics and about apologetics because I dabble in it every now and then a bit. And apologetics is kind of what got me back into Christianity. But yes, Evan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. Doing really well. I've been working on an upcoming project for YouTube that I'm going to be doing a little bit different. It's going to be a little bit different than my past videos. Instead of, like an inspiring philosophy style representation, it's going to be kind of like a conference lecture where you'll get slides and you'll get to see me, and it'll be like a Q&A thing on StreamYard like we're doing now. So I'm working on that. I got one of the slides finished. I got a second slide in the works. So I've been working on that. I'm thinking of maybe going through John Walton's Lost World series just as kind of a refresher course, get myself, prepped and have that material fresh in my mind.
Nice. Do you see me still?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Okay. Sorry, they're just having some issues right now with my computer. All right, so we are doing a live stream today to talk about a rather unfortunate event, the revelation sort of Ravi Zacharias' double life. Now, to those who don't know, and you probably know who he is if you're watching this, Ravi Zacharias was an apologist who recently died about a year ago or so, I want to say.
Yeah.
Probably about a year ago.
I think it was in May of 2020.
Yeah, so a little less than a year ago, but yes. And he was a popular apologist. I will say I have read maybe one book from him and not even all the way through. And other than that, I've never personally had much interaction with him as an apologist. I was more influenced by, honestly, by William Lane Craig and others like that, even James White, but not by Ravi Zacharias.
Yeah,
so
same here.
I wasn't.
Yeah, same here. My main influences were William Lane Craig, Frank Turek, Lee Strobel, Norman Geisler, and I mean, I guess you can count John Walton and Michael Heiser, though they're not really apologists per se, though what they teach can be useful in apologetics. Like John Walton's Genesis stuff can be really helpful for, answering critics who say, oh, you can't believe in science in the Bible. But yeah, I'm like you. Like I read one book and I listened to a few lectures by Ravi on NRSB, but that's about as far as it goes.
But yeah, so just to sort of give out, I won't go crazy into the details, but I don't want to sort of hide it either. There was a private investigation done concerning actions and accusations made about him. And this goes back to, well, the actual crimes that were discovered go back decades. But the controversy sort of was shown into the public light about 2 or 3 years ago. In fact, I remember seeing it about 3 years ago, I want to say, about the whole sexting scandal thing, where like he was receiving inappropriate images or giving inappropriate images to someone and that sort of stuff. And so there was an investigation done. It was an independent investigation done, and it shows it goes much deeper and much darker than just things like sexting. It shows prostitution. It shows that there are multiple credible accusations of rape, that there was sort of red light district stuff in places that are well known for underage prostitution. It's really, really, really bad. And this is not some sort of thing where it was a fall from grace in a sense. Like, I mean, people struggle with sin all the time. It's not that. It goes into systematic, continual sin. And they can track quite a bit of it because a lot of it was done through texting, through the computer and all that sort of stuff, and they had access to a lot of that. So this is not some sort of like, well, we need to give him grace because he fell or whatever. This isn't a fall, this is a dive.
Yeah, that's what struck me was how grievous and repetitive the sins were. It's not like you found out, oh, Ravi struggles with porn, or or they got, or even like a lot of evangelists, they got caught in adultery, where you have two consenting adults, but this is actually like a series of abusing women. People are getting hurt here, they're against their will. And I mean, all sexual sin is bad, and all sin is bad. I mean, James 1 or James 2 says if you even break the law at one point, it's like you're a breaker of the whole law. And I don't take that to mean all sin is equally evil, but I do take that to mean that all sin is enough to get you separated from God and in need of a savior. But I mean, this is more than just, oh, he got caught in an adulterous relationship, or he got caught, even something like swindling money. This is like really, really disturbing stuff. In fact, when I read the report, I was like, I need to take a shower.
Yeah. Yeah. So just so people who are watching know, this is just to know the extent of it, where it's not just some sort of moment of weakness kind of thing. This is very much a two-faced sort of life, a double life that we see. And again, like we both said, we were not really, he was never really heroes, I guess you could say, of ours. But that, that's neither here nor there. He's representing Christianity, a Christianity that we would both adhere to in some form, or the one that he portrayed or tended to portray. And so the question is, I've seen a lot of videos from this. I mean, Mike Winger has done a video about this, and he goes through the whole report, basically. David Wood goes through that one. I haven't seen David Wood's. Who else has done it? I mean, like a variety of people. James White has talked about it. Frank Turek has talked about it. Yeah. I don't think William Lane Craig has yet. Has he?
No, but he probably will. He probably just
should
around to it. Yeah. But I mean, pretty much everybody. So,
there are a few things I think that need to be pointed out. The reason I thought I should make this video, and I should do it with an apologist, is that I think there's something that is not quite focused upon enough. And hopefully this isn't putting you on the spot, because you're an apologist, kind of thing, how dare you kind of thing. But one thing that tends to happen with apologetics is that there isn't oversight with it. And I mean, you're not like a multi-million-dollar apologetics organization right now, right?
No.
But like you're growing and you're wanting, but you're growing and you're wanting to influence people, and which is good, obviously. And I love what you do. I mean, I support you and everything. But like the point being that you're not at that level of Ravi where you have these millions of dollars coming in every year, and that temptation there to do all these sorts of things.
No, I get Patreon peanuts. That's what I say.
But God willing, you can get to something like that one day. And the question there with that is, what are the structures that you have within, sort of your organization? And I'm not just pointing this at apologetics, apologetics organizations, as if like this is a unique problem amongst them. This is for anyone who is going into ministry of any sort. Like, you get famous, and what are the structures that you have that help you in this? As an example, Billy Graham, well-known evangelist, he had what was known as the Modesto Manifesto. Have you heard of this, Evan?
I've heard. I have not heard of that name, but I probably know what you're talking about if you described it.
Yeah. So the Modesto Manifesto is the sort of oath that they took. It was a few different things, but one of the big ones was basically like, I'm not going to be in a room alone with a woman I'm not related to. There's variations. I mean, like one of the rules I heard was like, unless she's like old enough to be my mother or something like that, or whatever. And the spirit of the point is that you don't give yourself a chance to get into and fall into temptation, because I mean, I don't know where it started with Ravi. I don't know how long ago it was, or it seems to be pretty deep, so probably would be a long time ago. But you need accountability. We need accountability. I need accountability. And whether you're in a formal ministry as a clergyman, or you're in a sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Para church organization thing. within like apologetics or evangelism or something. There needs to be that sort of accountability. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah. We'd all definitely need accountability because we're all weak and we're all sinful, and we do need to have strategies to keep us from falling into sin. And like you said, I think of that Casting Crown song, "Slow Fade," where it's a slow fade. When you give yourself away, people never crumble in a day. It's like this probably started, and David Wood talks about this. This probably started out very small. It probably started like very small thing. Maybe he had a friendship with, what's her name, Thomas. Maybe it was and he had to go to like massage parlors for his back problems. It started out as something that he didn't intend nefarious, but it kind of grew over time, and until it got to where he was committing some really grievous sins. And then, once you have done really horrible things, what are you going to do? If you come out and you confess it, well, you worry about your image, you worry about what people are going to think about you. You worry, all of the work I've done in ministry is just going to go down the toilet. And, even for smaller sins, like, not rape, but even for like smaller sins, like, porn addiction or something, people are afraid to come out, and because it's so, looked down upon. People in leadership positions are expected to be like this prime example of what a Christian is supposed to be. I mean, we almost put them up on a pedestal and treat them like there's like little Jesuses. And so it really, and if you're struggling with a sin that could be getting bigger, and it's not a really big deal right now, but it could become a big deal down the road. If you're in a leadership position, you will be heavily pressured to keep it secret because you don't want, even if it's just to a few friends, you might, let's say you have a falling out with one of them. Maybe one of them wants to use that to blackmail you and, stuff. And so it's just, it's a bad situation. And, I think the way we deal with this systematically at large needs to change.
So yeah, that's a very important point, I think. So for me, and not to get into a sort of denomination debate, this isn't about that, but I have a bishop that I'm under, and I have to report to my bishop multiple times a year, and he has the right to remove me from the church if I do something wrong or step out of line. Now, you don't need to necessarily, I would say, probably have a bishop, but there has to be that sort of oversight authority for you, as a Christian in whatever ministry thing you're doing, and obviously there's a difference between like being in your room and having a YouTube channel. Like once you grow into sort of a significant sort of thing, we're looking more, but even just in general in your life, it's good to have those accountability partners, those authorities over you who are able to tell you, hey, this is a bad thing in your life. You should probably check that out,
Right.
So what are your thoughts on that? Yeah.
Right. And I agree with that. Like, that's something that I think Catholics and Anglicans, that is one of the good things that confession helps with. Like, you have to go and confess to another person, and that can be a thing in your mind, because you think, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't do this, because if I do, I'm going to have to confess it when I go into the little booth. But even if you're not, even if you're a Baptist or a Methodist or or non-denominational like I am, I'm a denominational vagabond. You don't have to. You can still have confession. Just have just have even if it's just a group of friends, your pastor. They can, they can help you sort of navigate the waters and keep out of really serious sin. just
I agree.
Just one thing. I mean, like that porn software, Covenant Eyes. You could have
Yeah.
you could have that. You could have like if with a buddy, and if you look at explicit material, it's going to send a screenshot to him, or it's going to be blurred, but he's going to know you've been looking at explicit stuff, and he's going to be like, dude.
I think they do links or something. They say, or not links to it, but like they say this what they've gone through some inappropriate stuff. I don't know how it works.
My mind keeps going back to porn because that's like probably the most prominent sexual issue in the church. I mean, it's as much of a pandemic as the coronavirus. But I mean, even non-sexual sins, like what's an example? I mean,
stealing money.
Yeah. If you have a problem with misappropriating funds because you're a shopaholic or something, you can have a friend or a pastor kind of help you not misappropriate your funds.
Yeah. No, yeah. But part of that is just all of it, I think, goes to oversight, which is why I use the term accountability. Now, obviously, in my own theology, that would be confession, but it wouldn't be limited to confession. It wouldn't be just, well, my priest or my bishop or whoever. But I think we can all talk about accountability, the importance of accountability. And again, I don't think Ravi necessarily started with a sort of, like his first sexual sin was prostitution or something. I don't know, but I highly doubt it. It was probably looking at inappropriate stuff or something like that, or being alone with someone and doing stuff or whatever. But when you get into that, it's sort of like the whole analogy of the frog boiling in the water, where you just turn up the heat a little bit more and a little bit more, and then it gets into this. I mean, I know someone in my own life who's dealing with a similar sexual sin, and it exploded. It got really bad for this person recently. So it's not. Be sure your sin will find you out is what I always remember hearing growing up. But yeah, so I do want to look at other aspects of this too. So it's not just the accountability of the person as well. I mean, we need to make sure that we are being accountable to others and all that sort of stuff. But I do want us to look at the question of knowing when others are doing corrupt things. So what are your thoughts on because the idea that RZIM, like absolutely everybody, just was completely clueless about all this, I think is untenable, honestly, especially with the amount of money that was being used and all that sort of stuff. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I remember the whole sexting thing coming out a few years ago, and I gave him the benefit of the doubt because the evidence back then, I mean, it wasn't like the evidence for what we've got now for all of this stuff. I mean, it's pretty damning, but it was kind of, I was like, and that was also during the whole Me Too thing, when everybody and his brother was getting, this guy is a sexual pervert. This guy's a sexual, every man on the planet is a sexual pervert. I'm like, okay, yeah. So I mean, it got to the point, it was getting ridiculous, and it got to the point where I just kind of dismissed these kind of things because I'm like, oh yeah, here's another woman claiming to be abused by so and so. But there, looking in retrospect, hindsight is 2020. There were warning signs. I can't, that's the one I recall because I don't really follow the ministry or Ravi and what he was doing very closely, so I wasn't really paying attention. I mean, I probably missed a lot of warning signs just because I don't follow the guy, but I do remember that. And like you said, I don't know if you said this during the live stream or before we went live, but there was during that whole sexting scandal, he wouldn't turn over his devices. Like that was no, wait a minute. I think it was Frank Turek. I think it was Frank Turek who said that. I listened to just a little bit of his stream, before I got on StreamYard, and it was that. I think I may be getting my signals crossed of where I'm remembering where this was said. But yeah, he wouldn't hand over his devices, and that was a red flag.
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous. If there's a credible accusation of something like that, and you are refusing to turn your phone in to like authorities of some sort, that's a major red flag. Yeah. I mean, honestly, my opinion, if you're not even willing to like hand your phone to someone who's a friend of yours or something like that, that makes me wonder, okay, well, why are you so hesitant to let someone use the phone like that?
For me, if I give you my phone, I know what you're going to find. You're going to find 1,000 pictures of Jelly Bean, my cat, and you're going to find a whole bunch of memes and apologetic services.
and Digimon
Digimon video, yes. So I'll be like, hey, go ahead.
So I think that we're seeing sort of the idea of the sort of power and fame and all that sort of stuff corrupting. And I think that one of the problems I do have, and I haven't seen a lot of this to be fair, but I've seen it often enough to be concerned, is that there are people still sort of trying to defend Ravi and sort of make excuses of like, well, he's dead now, he can't really defend himself and all that sort of stuff. These are pretty credible claims and very serious claims. This is not a, we looked at his browsing history and found, XXX or whatever kind of thing,
Yes. This is I agree with that. That is very disturbing. And I like what David Wood said in his video. He said, this is bogus. He said, what if these are Wood's words. Try saying that 3 times fast. He said, what if I died today and you found like the bodies of 20 dead people under my house, and detectives did all of their homework. They just came up with overwhelming evidence that I was the killer. David would ask, would you really not be able to talk about it just because I'm dead? That's absurd. And as much as we want to believe that Ravi's innocent, of course we don't want to believe it's true. We want this to be false. We wish that it wasn't the case. There is a difference between the presumption of innocence and the assumption of innocence. We presume someone is innocent until guilty, but that's a priori. That presumption is a priori. In other words, before we look at the evidence. But after we look at the evidence, that's a different story. If we look at the evidence and we see a pretty good case that so-and-so is guilty, well, then we should believe that they're guilty. Follow the evidence where it leads, not believe against the evidence. And I mean, as those of us in the apologetics community who really preach this message of following the evidence where it leads, and be just the facts, follow the facts, be logical. We should not be doing this. We should not be jumping through logical hoops to try to make this fishy, to make the situation not seem like what it is.
No, I agree. And I think one of the things that we need to understand is that obviously these are not victimless crimes in the least. They are very serious victims that are victims we don't even know of. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, again, it's not like they found some Penthouse magazines under his bed. I mean, these are people who are emotionally scarred. They're going to be like working through what Ravi did to them for quite some time.
Yeah, and my point being that we see when you're trying, well, not you obviously, but when people are trying to defend and sort of excuse and try to push away, that is quite the insult to to those who were abused by him, the many who were abused by him. And again, this like we're talking about stuff like where he lived in Bangkok for months on end, and like 3 miles far away from underage prostitution areas, like that sort of stuff. Like it's really, really bad. So So we need to, first of all, keep, have we been praying for the victim? We know of a few of the victims, or at least one, well, one and her husband as well, so two. But do we know of other victims? I don't know if we know of other victims by name, but like, have we been praying for them? Have we, like these are serious actions against, that are done against these people. And again, I cannot overstate the importance of keeping yourself accountable. Whether it's confession or whether it's an accountability partner or covenant eyes or whatever, it's so essential that we actually look at our lives and make sure that we're not falling deeper and deeper into sin.
Yeah, I was just talking to a non-Christian earlier. We weren't talking anything about this. It was a totally different context, totally different subject. It was the topic of libertarian free will, and I was I brought up Genesis 4, and in Genesis 4, God is talking to Cain, and in Genesis, I think it's verse 26, he's God is sort of being Cain's accountability partner, like speaking to him audibly, or maybe how this would have looked, to use Michael Heiser's terms, boots on the ground. But in verse 6, he says, the Lord said to Cain, we know the context. They brought sacrifices before God, but God accepted Abel's sacrifice, rejected Cain's, and Cain, he gets really ticked off about this. He's like, why you accept Abel's offering and not mine? And then God says to Cain, in verse 6, why are you angry? Why is your face downcast? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it. Now Cain said to his brother Abel, let's go out to the field. And while they were in the field, Cain attacked his brother Abel and killed him. And in the context I was having with this gentleman is that God, presupposed that he could have done otherwise. Otherwise, he wouldn't have warned him. He said, hey, sin is crouching at your door. I know what you're thinking about doing. And I've speculated in my writings on Genesis 4 that Cain may have been harboring vengeful feelings, anger towards his brother for a long time. Like, this wasn't just something he decided to do one day because he was ticked. It was, and he says, it's crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it. Like, God knew what was about to happen, that this evil was building up in Cain, and he says, deal with it right now, because when the time comes, when that temptation comes to go kill your brother, you're going to give into it, and it's going to be really bad. And my point, obviously Cain had the ability to do otherwise, therefore he had libertarian free will. But in this context, it's Cain let him. He let sin grow. It crouched at his door, and what he should have done is not gave it a foothold.
Yep.
And another passage that comes to mind is James chapter 1, where James says, I can't remember the oh, here we go, verses 13 and 14. This is King James version, so I am sorryeth. Let no man say when he is tempted, I am tempted of God, for God cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempteth he any man. But every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust and enticed. Then when lust hath conceived, it bringeth forth sin, and sin, when it is finished, bringeth forth death. That's James chapter 1, verses 13 to 15. So, it's like the Casting Crown song goes. It's a slow fade. It starts off small, but it grows and it grows. And, in Genesis 4, what starts out as being angry towards your brother because God likes him more than you, it ends in murder. In James 1, it ends in death. So we really do need to take sin a lot more seriously, and like Barney Fife would say, nip it in the bud.
I agree. Amen. So I don't want to detail on this too much, but Michael Chandler Keaton is pointing out issues with claims of libertarian free will. That's a side issue. We can talk about that, whether or not these are good representations of libertarian free will within scriptures. Evan is a a Molinist. I am a Molinist as well, but I don't think that's important to this the greater topic at hand, which is what this video is. We can do a video on that at some point. I mean, I'm a big advocate of Molinism. So, yeah. Anyway, so what we need to do is we need to make sure, one of the things is I'm looking at this with my sort of political lens as well, in an odd sense, because I think that politics is best governed as locally as possible. And so I think that sort of having these major sort of organizations that are not under the authority of a church, that are just sort of being loose cannons doing their own thing, and not that they're necessarily bad, but I think that it's not the best way to go about with these sorts of things. I think that there needs to be a structure, that structure within the church body itself, where you have ministers, clergymen, whether whatever you want to call them, presbyters, priests, pastors, whatever, where they are under that authority, because otherwise it's just becoming its own sort of organization. I mean, he was literally purchasing with his discretionary fund, like buildings or renting out spaces for his massage parlors, where he would then like pay to train women that he was attracted to for stuff. To get training to them. I don't want to get into detail of it, but like that whole thing. So what are your thoughts on that? You're free to disagree with me if you want, and I'd love to hear your reasons, and I'm not going to like be pushing hardly back against it. But like, what are your thoughts on the idea that apologetics organizations should be under the structure of the church? However you define the church. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I think. Well, how do you define the church?
So within your own non-denominational background, we'll go with this. Let's say you start getting really famous and all that. And I actually hope you do, because I think you're awesome. So you get really famous, and you start getting like a lot of money put in. I think if I were in your shoes and within your denomination, or your non-denominational, or whatever, I would look at my local church and say, "Hey, pastor, I have this organization that is like now growing multiple numbers, and hundreds of thousands of dollars are coming in every year, and all that sort of stuff. So I would like to place myself under your spiritual guide and authority here, and you'd have to be setting up like a board of a board group and all that for that. I think like having it connected with your local church is an important part of that, because your local church is the group that knows you. Your local church, they know you spiritually the most, so they can tell if you're hiding things or if there are problems or all that sort of stuff, rather than just like, oh, well, there's this guy I know 500 miles away who's a really good financial guy, so I'm gonna have him come in and hire him, even though he and I don't know each other at all. That sort of thing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I would agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's sorry. Just
when I hear the phrase "under the authority of the church," and I know that you wouldn't agree with that because you're not a Roman Catholic. But when I hear "under the authority of the church," I think of like the papacy or something. Yeah. Telling me what I do. Yes. I'm like, wait a minute. What is he talking about here?
Well, for me, that authority would be my bishop. So he does have a big hat. So.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, I understand. So however your denomination,
even though I'm not a Baptist anymore, I still value like the autonomy of local churches.
No, I do too, and that's an essential part of ecclesiology, I would say. But yeah, no, I think that again, place yourself under proper authority with people not just, don't have these people who like you just check in with once a month and you've never physically met them, sort of thing, as sort of a spiritual guide or whatever. Like have people on the ground with you, sort of thing. And this one, I think this one might be difficult, but I think there is wisdom in this. I don't agree with Dr. James White on everything or on quite a few things. He's a Reformed Baptist, but my understanding is that, like in general, he tries to be at his home church at least 2 Sundays of every month. So at least 50% of the time. And like, I have a lot of respect for that. That's really good. He does quite a bit of stuff with his apologetics ministry. And I think that, take what you want with that, but that goal is, I think, very noble,
Yeah.
So anyway, are there any other final words you want to say? I think we've said just about all that we would like to.
Yeah, well, I just, to anyone out there who might be struggling with believing in Christianity because of this, and I know this is another reason. This is one of the reasons I hate it. I hate it. I hate this whole situation because innocent people got hurt. But I also hate that I think maybe a lot more people are going to be hurt spiritually because they think, oh, this is just another person who pretended to love Jesus, but he was just a devil in disguise, and that just confirms my suspicion that all Christians are just hypocrites, and this Jesus stuff is just bunk. That is, don't let Ravi's heinousness turn you away from Christ. If you're a non-Christian listening to this, Christianity is true. Whether Ravi was as good as Jesus or as evil as Hitler, his character and the correct worldview, that the worldview that reflects reality, they are unrelated. As David Wood put it well, he said, if a mathematician tells you that 2 + 2 = 4, and he's punching you in the face while he's saying that, that doesn't discredit his statement that 2 + 2 = 4. And likewise, all of Ravi's arguments, his message, what he said, a lot of what he said was right and true, and was said by a lot of other Christian apologists who aren't scumbags. If a mathematician punches you in the face and says 2 + 2 = 4, that statement is either true or false, even whether he punched you in the face or not. And even if he bought you a sports car and said 2 + 2 = 5, that wouldn't mean that 2 + 2 = 5. So I would really suggest that you check out the arguments and the evidence for Christianity. Go to cerebralfaith.net. I've got a lot of material on this in blog form, video form, podcast form. When I talk about the Kalam cosmological argument, fine-tuning argument, the evidence for the resurrection of Jesus, the problem of evil, and just look at the evidence. Don't I remember someone on Twitter a long time ago. He was quoting Gandhi, and I don't know if Gandhi actually said this, but Gandhi is frequently quoted as saying this. And the guy, he was responding to the Gandhi quote, basically, and he said, "If you like our Christ but not our Christians, follow our Christ and not our Christians." Look at Christ, look at the God-man, and base your decision on whether to follow him or not on him.
I will say, to sort of add a little bit to that, St. Paul does say, "Follow me as I follow Christ." And so our job as Christians, especially as Christian leaders, clergymen and all, our job is to be examples of Christ to the people.
Yeah, but I'm saying is, even if someone fails at doing that, and you see, oh, this guy's not, he's not imitating Christ the way he ought to be. Don't let that turn you off, because there are other people who are doing a really bang up job at following Christ and doing what he wants them to do. What really matters is the message and who Jesus is. Jesus said, "Who do you say that I am?" And I just recently finished a 12-part video showing good historical evidence, not quoting the Bible to prove the Bible, that Jesus claimed to be God, and he backed it up by dying and rising from the dead.
Amen. I totally agree. Actually, I'll have to look into those because I haven't seen those yet. I think I forgot to put notifications on for your channel because I haven't gotten any. But I'll be sure to do that.
Shame on you.
I'm sorry. Hey, I support you financially, so there.
Yeah, you're a patron. You get a shout out every podcast episode.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Evan. Cerebral Faith. Cerebral Faith Video is the name of the YouTube channel, right?
Yeah.
Cerebral Faith video. I'll put it up here. He says, "Hi, how is everyone?" All right. Go ahead and check him out. He's really good. I like a lot of what he does with his apologetics, despite him being non-denominational or whatever he is right now. I'm teasing. I had to say that. Sorry.
Denominational vagabond of what I like to call it.
Denominational vagabond. Anyway, brothers and sisters, stay away from sin. Stay away from any form of sin. And I hope you all have a good day. God bless, and may God keep you safe.